Hello, welcome to lesson number 9, the last lesson in Unit 1. So what's our topic today? In order to be successful, we need to be able to convert fractions, decimals, and percent. So at the end of this, when you walk out of here today, I want you to be able to tell me I can convert fractions to decimals to percent and vice versa. So where do we start? First thing I want to talk about is what is the relationship between fractions, decimals, and percent. And the answer to that is they all represent the same value. They all represent the same value. They just look different. They just look different. So let's start off with something that everyone should be able to do in their head. So here's my example. Let's start with the fraction 1/2. Okay, so there it is in fraction form. So fraction, decimal, and percent. So if I gave you the fraction 1/2, everyone probably can tell me what the decimal of a half is. Decimal 1/2, or sorry, fraction 1/2 is the same as decimal 0.5. If I asked you what half was as a percentage, then I'm hoping everyone here could tell me we would be dealing with 50%. So how do we move if you don't know the fraction? So if it's like 3/7 or 2/11, something that's not nice like a half, I pick something that's nice to start with. So let's look at the arrows moving, excuse me, to the right. If I started with a fraction, how do I get a decimal? Well, I take numerator divided by denominator. All right, so we'd take that numerator, the 1, and we'd hit divide by 2, and you'd get 0.5. How would you then change a decimal into a percent? You take the decimal, and you multiply by 100. So you take the 50%, and you would divide by 100, or sorry, or 0.5, you'd multiply by 100 and you'd get 50. So that moves you to the right. So the arrows show which direction we're looking. What happens if you want to go the other way? What happens if you know the percent and you want to get a decimal? Well, you would then take the percent and you would divide by 100. If you want to go from a decimal to a fraction, you would put the decimal over a denominator of 10, 100, 1,000, and I'll talk about how to pick it properly in a second. All right. Now, this may not work all the time for us. Actually, I shouldn't say this. This will work all the time for us, but in real life, it doesn't always work just that easy. Okay, but I'll make sure it's something that will work for us. Okay, so let's do some examples. Convert the first example here, convert the following decimals to percent. So let's go with 0.65, and my second example is 0.28. Third example, what happens if I have 1.25? And the fourth example, 0.003. So 4 quick examples there. Going from decimal to percent, we need to take our decimal and we need to multiply by 100. So each of these, we're going to multiply by 100, and you're going to use your calculator, or you're going to realize that when you multiply by 100, you're moving the decimal place 2 to the right. So we would end up with 65%. And this one we would end up with 0.28 times 100 is 28%. If we multiply this one by 100, we end up with 125%. And then this is always the hardest one because you think the number should be bigger than it is. 0.003 would give me 0.3%. So going decimal to percent, we multiply by 100. All right. What if I want to convert fractions to decimals? So I'll just do 3 examples here. So let's go with 2/5, 3/7, and 4/9. How do we convert fractions to decimals? It's numerator divided by denominator. So I need to grab my calculator. So I have my calculator. So I literally punch in 2 divided by 5, and I get 0.4. So 0.4. Okay, 3/7. 3 divided by 7, numerator divided by denominator, 0.43. We're going to round it. So 0.43. Excuse me. The last one's 4/9. 4 divided, oops, let's multiply, divided by 9 equals 0.444444. So we're just going to go to 2 decimal places here, 0.44. All right. Now convert the following fractions to percent. So it's taking the first examples here and putting them together. So if I have 1/7, what would I have to do? I'm going to have to, first of all, get it as a decimal. So I'm going to do numerator divided by denominator, and then I'm going to multiply by 100. So the first step is to get it into a decimal form. So 1 divided by 7, I get 0.14, so it's equal to 0.14. And to get it as a percent, I then multiply by 100, so that means it is 14%. Okay? So it's combining the examples from above. Second one, if I had 15 out of 18, 15/18. Step 1, you need to get it as a decimal. We do numerator divided by denominator. 15 divided by 18, 0.8333, so 0.83. Repeated. We multiply by 100, and we get 83%. All right, so that's your end game right there. That is what I want you to be able to do. This question right here tells me whether you understand what you're doing. Can you go from fractions to percent? So can you do the double step? All right, and we'll look at that specifically when you come and see me. Okay, go in the other direction. So convert the following percent to decimals. So if I gave you 45%, 0.8%, and 150%. How do you convert percent to decimal? I hear people screaming out the answer. You got to divide by 100. So the first one, when you divide by 100, you now move the decimal to the left and get smaller, 0.45. You're dividing it into small chunks, 0.8, divide by 100, and we get 0.008. And the last one, divide by 100, we get 1.5. The next example, convert the following decimals to fractions. And this is where I'm going to cheat a little bit and make it so it does work out for us. Okay, so for example, let's go with 0.6. Oops, I don't know why I started with a 2 there. Okay, second example, 0.35. And the third example, 0.255. Okay, this is the trickier one. What we're going to do is we're going to count how many times we move the decimal over. So to get it to be a number without a decimal, I'd have to move the decimal over one spot. My numerator would become a 6. My denominator is going to be 1, and then I count how many times I moved my decimal. In this case, I moved it once, so I'll have 1 0. So it'd be 6 tenths. Okay, so it's the number of times you move the decimal over that dictates how many zeros. So I move the decimal place one spot, so I have 1 0. Okay, and yes, I know that fraction reduces, but that's not my focus here. So my number on top for number 2 is going to be 35. That will be the number on top of my fraction. Okay, because I want the whole number. I don't want a decimal, so I'll just take the 35. How many times did I move the decimal? I moved it once. I moved it twice. So I moved it over twice. So that means I will have a 1 with 2 zeros. So it'd be 35 over 100. Finally, the third example, I have 255 if I ignore the decimal. On top, 255 divided by, I move the decimal once, twice, 3 times. So that means I will have 3 zeros. So the answer is 255 over 1,000. All right. So there you go. So that's the trickiest, is to make the decimal into a fraction. We're going to talk about how to write that up. And make an anchor chart for that specific one, because I'm not going to it's not a quick formula here. Last and final example, convert the following percent to fractions. And this is the one I like, because everyone thinks it's going to be tricky, but it turns out to be very, very easy. So for example, if I had 37%, what is that as a fraction? Well, let's talk about what does percent mean for a second. Percent means what part of 100 do you have? Right? Okay, percent means what part, that's a statement, not a question. Well, how much out of 100 do you have? Percent is always out of 100. So if you have 37%, you have 37 out of 100. So we don't even need to go to a decimal form here. Okay, percents are real easy to switch to fractions. If I told you that JC got 92%, you know that you could tell me that if there was 100 questions, he got 92 of them correct. So we just got to put our percentage over 100. All right. So put percent over 100. So percent over 100. Okay, so there we go. That is the end of Unit 1. We got review and test coming up. And in this case, we don't have an assignment for Unit 1. We're going to move into Unit 2. So if you have any questions, make sure you ask them.